So if we click on parts here, you can search for your parts here. You can show inactive parts on the right-hand side, and you can edit a part on the right-hand side. Delete, again, will inactivate if there is any transactions. It won't completely delete the part. And if we click on a part here, we can see a part view, the default rate, what we typically charge for the part, the cost, what we typically pay for it, the on-hand quantity in our main warehouse, or I guess overall warehouses, it's adding them together. The costing method, in this case, is standard, description, if it's a panel, if we have default categories and types. You can add documents. Some people add like cut sheets or diagrams or pictures of the part here, so that is available. Part ledger is going to show any changes to this part. So when you've added it to work orders, issued it, created a bill or a receipt to a purchase order, physical warehouse changes. So any change to this part will have its own entry, and you can click on the plus sign or the entry to see what that was. And then you can have more than one vendor. Some customers, because when you add a new part, it gives you only one vendor as the primary vendor, which you see in this case is ADI. If you come to the part, you can add additional vendors. So this isn't super intuitive for some of our customers. So just let them know if that comes up that they can come to the part, add additional vendors. Each vendor can have its own vendor cost, but the standard cost stays the same. Vendor costs can be different, and they can have their own part code, right? So if ADI has a different part code than, let's say, Triad, you could put different part codes in here per vendor. Underneath more on the right-hand side, you can see all vendors over here as well. And to edit a part, we'll click on edit here. This is what the fields you would select when you add a new part. So you have the part code and description. There is that long description that's up to 2,000 characters that would appear on a purchase order if you toggled off use long description in the preferences. You can indicate a manufacturer category if there's a default category, type and subtype. Category is used for your profit and loss statement. So if there is a default category, you can identify that here. But let's say this part is used for both service tickets, inspections, and installation. So it could be on any type of work order, and you have those different categories, install, service. You don't have to, you see it's not a required field here. If you leave it blank here and add this part to a work order that's an installation, it would default to that category. If you added this part to a work order that was a service ticket, it would default to that category. So it does not need to be selected here. It's not required. I would recommend if it can be used for different types of category, different types of categories, not to indicate it here. But I would recommend using type and subtype. Types are typically, if you use types, like a type of, it could be like Fireberg, cameras, things like that. And then subtype, or in this case, if it was fire, the actual type of devices. Is it a smoke detector, a heat detector, duct detector? So then underneath parts, you can see, let me see all of my smoke detectors. If it's taxable anywhere, you're going to toggle taxable to yes. And then depending on the customer, that will identify if it's taxable in their tax rate. Panel here, if it is a panel, you'll want to toggle this to yes, and panels are used underneath systems, and they are a required field. So you want to make sure you have at least a couple of panels set up so that you can save systems. Special order, if this is toggled on, this means that this part cannot be added to a warehouse. It's only a special order, and it has to be direct expense to a work order. Not super common, but maybe your high-end parts that you don't want to keep in stock, you'll toggle special order to yes, so that they can only be purchased directly for a work order. There is where you're adding that main vendor. That would be your primary vendor, but you can see, like we took a look at, once you save a part, you are able to add multiple vendors. You have the manual revenue GL account. That's for miscellaneous invoice, which income general ledger account is the default for this part. You have a service revenue GL account, and service is for work orders. So what is the income account for a work order? For this part, your costing, once you choose standard or average, you cannot change it. So your costing method there. The default rate is what you charge your customer. But of course, on any work order, any proposal, you can adjust the cost. So this is just a default. Cost amount, this would be the cost amount that would initially be for standard costing, the cost, but that can be adjusted, as you saw, per warehouse, which you saw was the little dollar sign icon on the right-hand side of the part. Labor units, optional to use, but this would be how many labor units or how many hours it takes to install the part. So if it's 15 minutes, you could put a quarter of an hour here. And this is used mostly for proposals, if it's used at all, where once you add all of the parts to a proposal, it will identify, and if you're using this feature, how long it should take to install that entire job. And then that can be used to identify how much to charge for labor. So it's optional to use. It can be overridden in the proposal area, but it is just to let you know how long it takes to install that part. Barcode is for informational purposes, which can be added here. And the part image, if you update a picture of the part, that can be added